Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live for this Wednesday afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate that you take the time with us. I think we've got just a fantastic Wednesday show for you. Second hour, Dr. Angela Franks is going to be here with us, and we're going to talk a bit about the Catholic understanding of the human body. I know that sounds odd, but it's very important in the interaction between Catholic values, Catholic beliefs, Catholic hopes for the future, and those of the secular world, which has a different view of the body. So hang around for that second hour. It's going to be great. This hour, how are you doing coming out of the COVID funk that we've all been in? Are you getting back to normalcy? Are you having concerns about relationships as you come out of these recent troubles that we've had? Well, we've got two wonderful guests for you to discuss that. You know them from Take Two with Jerry and Debbie each morning on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Debbie Georgiani, Jerry Usher are our guests. Hello, Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, Cy. Thank you so much for having us.
It's wonderful to have you. And one of the great things that you guys do on your show is it's like a community that you've built there where you all talk about stuff. Is this something that people are talking about how trying to find a way back to normalcy after the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. When we do our All About Relationships show or anything to do with re-engaging after the pandemic and trying to, some people even said, is it a new normal of how we interact with one another? That comes up all the time on Take Two. And thank you for acknowledging, Cy, that we, with the listeners and going 6 years strong, we have developed a beautiful Take Two family. But I have to tell you, Cy, Jerry decided that he wanted to spend his last day in the 50s, 59 years old. He decided he wanted to spend it on Catholic Answers Live.
Jerry's 60 tomorrow?
He is.
Jerry, congratulations.
Congratulations or condolences? Which one?
Well, I suppose that entirely depends on how you feel about it.
I feel great about it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Congratulations are in order, too, for how much of that life you have devoted to communicating the Catholic faith via Catholic media. You're the guy that invented a lot of what the rest of us try to do now. So thanks for that, Jerry.
When you mentioned that I invented a lot of things, it could make me feel a lot older than I really am. But
no, you're plenty old.
I know.
Hey, if you want to talk with Jerry and Debbie, 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Are you sensing a return to normalcy in your interpersonal relationships? Maybe you're feeling guarded about how you interact with others. I know I still feel when I leave the house, am I forgetting something? Am I forgetting something? And it's that mask that we've been wearing for the last year that we don't have to wear now in California. See, I don't know how it was in the rest of the country or the world, but in California, you pretty much couldn't do anything without it. Maybe is your dating life, whether it's dating your spouse or you're getting back out there in the dating scene, is that working? Is that not working? All that stuff. 888-318-7884. You can call with questions. You can just call to talk because that is what happens with Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. By the way, you can find out all about what Jerry and Debbie do, including having a wonderful network of life coaches by going to standtalltoday.com. Standtalltoday.com. Again, the number 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. I'm going to chat with Jerry and Debbie for a minute here, Darren, but you're going to have to tell me when to go to the phone lines because my computer just signed out. I have no idea why. It just decided Jerry and Debbie are here. Let's just sign out on you. So I don't know if the two of you are like me. And Debbie, you're in Arizona. I don't know what it's been like in Arizona, but I almost feel like someone's going to yell at me when I walk into a 7-Eleven now, because of the mask thing. It's hard to readjust.
That just cracks me up because I so agree with you, Cy, because going from having to wear the mask all the time and even having spare masks in the
Yeah,
car,
right.
and we have to make sure we always have an extra one. And then to walk into a restaurant or a grocery store, and it's so beautiful because you can actually see the next person's face, and you don't have to try to, make that eye contact and make sure you make that connection. It's a whole new thing that we're getting used to again, because we spent over a year, being separated with the masks, and that does take a toll on all of us and our spirit, if you will, because we are meant for community. We are meant to connect.
Yes.
And we were, with the mask, definitely kept us separated. So, yeah, it was an adjustment back, but it's kind of strange. When I first walked into a store, I actually went back to my car. I thought, I'm forgetting something, and I did the same thing. And it's so bizarre how you get used to a new habit.
Right, exactly. 888-318-7884, the number, 888-318-7884. I have to say one thing about the masks is I'm not very good at remembering people's names. So the mask always gave me an excuse to go, now who is that? So even if I knew the person, because they would have to say their name to me. So now I got to go back to remembering names again. It's going to be hard. But the relationship thing, that's the thing, is can you just pick up and get right back into it, or are people having trouble picking up and getting right back into it? If you want to call and talk about that, 888-318-7884. How are you finding it, Jerry?
Well, first of all, you have to ask people to wear those "Hello, my name is" masks, and that way you'll have no problem knowing what their name is. But yeah, I just ordered a set of 100 masks, and now we don't have to wear them. Good thing I only paid about $2.50 for the 100 masks. But it's the same. It's the same for me. You just feel like you almost don't have clothes on. And you're looking at other people like, what are they thinking? You see some people with masks on, some people don't have them on. And, I'm hoping that we have really rounded a corner here where they keep talking about this Delta variant and other things. I just would hate it so much. We all would, if we kind of got thrust back into that. But for me personally, it's coming back, I don't feel quite as conspicuous when I go to the grocery store and stuff like that, but really would love to hear from, people with their lived experiences. That's what we asked them to share on Take Two. And what's it been like? Are you going back to the gym? Do you have to wear your mask? Are you working out with your workout buddies again? What about going to the grocery store? Or you mentioned the dating scene, or just socializing in general. What is your experience like? Do you sort of feel a little bit antsy or edgy sometimes? So yeah, I'd love to hear what people have to say about that.
Again, 888-318-7884, the number. I got to tell you though, when Jerry and Debbie are here, the lines fill up, and they have filled up now, every line full. Let's start. Let's go right to some calls. We'll see what folks have to say. We'll start with Motocross Charlie. Now that's a name. Motocross Charlie in Olympia, Washington, listening on the EWTN app. Happy to have you, Motocross Charlie. What's your experience like?
Well, good afternoon, Cy. Hello, Jerry and Debbie. Good to hear from you on the afternoon out
Charlie,
here on the coast.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. Hey, I was just going to let you guys know things are really starting to cheer up out here. We're able to go around and smile at each other now. You forget the reaction that people get to a big smile. That's the one thing I've noticed was there's been a lot of smiling going on. And when you got that mask on, it just, you can't see it. And It's amazing how one smile will change somebody else's whole demeanor. They smile back, they start looking, their eyes light up, It's also been great for me. Jerry and Debbie know my dad's in an Alzheimer's home. And my dad, now I can go in and see him. I can go in and bring his favorite McDonald's hamburger to him,
What a good son.
I have a chance. Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot better here in the last couple of months, and we're going motocross racing this weekend with the boys, and we love listening to EWTN, and we love listening to Take Two. So I'll be quiet now.
Oh, that's such a sweet call. Thank you so much. And we're so glad that you got to, be with your dad and to, give that wonderful hugs and those smiles. And you're right. You're absolutely correct. We've lost the ability in that year to really light up somebody's day with a bright and shining smile, right? So we really had to work hard, like I said earlier, to eye connect. And some people have a difficult time making that eye connection. And so it was really tough on people. And you could almost see the heaviness in their hearts and in their faces, even behind the mask. Everybody just seemed tired and disconnected. And that was unfortunate. I'm glad. I love the way you said it, Charlie, that it's just, that it's coming back. The cheer is back. I love that.
Charlie, thanks very much for the call. I'm going to take a quick break and be back with more. There's a line open now if you want to call, 888-318-7884. We're talking about returning to relationships. Can you get back to normal? Are you able to? Do you need some help in that regard? You have some concerns? You just want to share your experience? You're welcome to call. Jerry and Debbie are our guests from Take Two with Jerry and Debbie each morning all around the world on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. That number, 888-318-7884.
You're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Hey, it's Wednesday, and that means a new episode of our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, has dropped. You can check it out at CatholicAnswersFocus.com or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Catholic Answers Focus, the world's premier podcast on Catholic apologetics, now available every Wednesday at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
The Church has 2,000 years of wisdom to share on what it takes to live life gracefully.
And we're so overwhelmed by how much our faith has transformed our marriage and family especially. We want everyone to experience the incredible gift that the Catholic vision of life and love really is.
More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak. Tomorrow morning, 10 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Catholic Church is a community. It's a community of communities. There's nothing more important than community in Catholic faith. And two people who have really pioneered the building up of community via radio are Jerry and Debbie. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie is mornings on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. And when you listen, you find a lot of people who know each other, people like our caller who just called. They've talked before, they've gotten to know one another, and they build that community, and we need that. But we also need that in-person kind of community, and how's that going for you now that we are back out or working our way out? And in some places, I'm sure it feels very much like it's over. In other places, it doesn't feel over at all. Your experience is welcome here. If you want to talk with Jerry and Debbie, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. I'm going to go to Martin now in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Martin, glad to have you. Go ahead with your question or comment for Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Very well, thank you.
Doing well, Martin. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. I'm still not there. I mean, here in Omaha, we're opening up. The masks are not required anymore, but I guess I'm still in the aspect of that it's not over. I still wear masks when I go out. I wear masks at work, and I'm still, I guess, fearful. My daughter she ended up in the hospital, and so it was very serious, and so I'm just still, I haven't been to mass since a long time, and I wish I could go back, but I'm just too afraid to of the situation yet.
Martin, is your daughter out of the hospital now? Is she on the mend?
Yes, she's on. Well, she's getting there. It's going to be the doctors. She ended up, I don't know if you know about MISC, MISC. It's a complication, and she was in the hospital for about 9 days, and it really took a toll on her. I mean, she's still seeing a cardiologist and a multiple of doctors, and they said 6 to 8 months before she could, get back to somewhat normal, and she's probably in about month 4. So. Oh
Lord, that's all. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that you would have your own trepidation. Jerry and Debbie, what do you want to say to Martin?
Well, if I can go first, Jerry, just for a moment, because I could hear. Oh, I could hear in Martin's voice. You're very much. It sounds like you're very much still in shock, and you talked about the fear. And that's understandable. The only thing I could say, Martin, is don't let anybody pressure you. When you're ready, you're ready. Okay, I think sometimes we, especially here in the U.S., we can be really hard on one another and say, well, this is what everybody's doing, so you've got to do it. And you have to do what's right, and what's right in your heart. You'll step out of that fear, and you'll be ready, and it'll be the right time. God knows your heart. Your guardian angel's with you to really be there with you and to guard you and to guide you and to also help you out of that fear. But you've been through a lot. Okay, and so there's that shock that weighs in with what happened to your daughter, and then everything that's happening, because of having endured COVID, and what that means for your family, and how do we react now? Do we get nervous with this variant, coming up? So take your time. I don't want you to feel panicked, because I know some people, especially here in Arizona, people were saying, I felt panicked to just throw the mask out the window. Well, it may not be the right time for you. Do what you think is best for you and your family, Martin. That's what I would say. Jerry?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Just be yourself. Be discerning and prayerful about this, and also wise, and knowing what the risks are and so forth. And then I was going to say, what really breaks our heart, Martin, is you haven't been able to go to Mass for a long time, and I'm sure that pains your heart very, very much. Obviously, you probably thought about this and been doing it all along, but you can make what's called a spiritual communion every day. Actually, you can make one, and then of course you're probably able to watch Mass on TV. But our prayer for you is going to be that you do have that peace in your heart, and that as time goes by, God willing, you're going to be able to get back to Mass, because we all know how important that is, and it sounds like you really miss it.
Martin?
Yes, I do. I watch Mass weekly, and I do a spiritual communion each week. But like I said, I do miss the interaction with people and the community. But I'm just, like I said, still have the fear in my heart and in my mind, and I know I just have to trust in the Lord. And I just keep praying, and hopefully soon I'll be able to get to Mass.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so, Martin. Martin, thank you very, very much for the call. I feel like Jerry and Debbie, one of the real dark sides of the whole pandemic was to see how impatient we all are with one another. Like, if you don't agree with me on the virus, if you don't agree with my view, or if you don't have my view about the mask, somehow you're, if you wear the mask, then some people would think you're virtually a communist. If you don't wear the mask, even if you're out hiking in the mountains, other people would say you're some kind of Nazi. It's like, well, we all, the patience for one another was unchristian, I thought.
Absolutely. I believe that as well. So I think we were very unkind to one another, cruel at times, like you said, impatient, intolerant. We didn't want to even take time to hear another person's come from of what's happening with them. I mean, we just judged just by looking at the situation. Yeah. And that's really unfortunate, because I think this pandemic, it brought out the best in people who, like, especially our frontline, workers and everybody that's doing such great work, helping to save lives. But it also brought out the worst in people, I think.
Yeah, I felt that way too. And I feel like, there's going to be people for whom the trauma of this, because you don't know if someone's daughter spent 9 days in the hospital.
right.
You don't know what
That's
someone else
right.
has been through, and you're going to give them a dirty look or something because they're still wearing the mask, and you feel like we should all just move on. I feel like that kind of impatience really does not. It certainly doesn't come from Christ. He didn't treat people that way. I'm going to go to Ohio next. Lisa in Ohio, listening to EWTN, Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio, where every morning you can hear Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Go ahead, Lisa, with your question or comment for Jerry and Debbie.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call. I was calling first to wish my birthday twin, Jerry, a happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh,
Thank you,
my
Lisa.
birthday is also tomorrow.
Awesome.
So I wish you a very blessed and beautiful day tomorrow and a healthy, happy year to come. So
that's very nice.
Thank you so much.
Anyway.
Yeah.
You're welcome. So my comment about COVID, so in Ohio, things are opened up. If you're vaccinated, you can be without the mask. If you're not vaccinated, you're supposed to wear the mask, but there doesn't seem to really be people checking that. I work in healthcare, and I work with patients who are immunosuppressed. So out of work, I'm not masking, but once I go into the hospital building and the clinic building, I must mask. And then when I'm with patients, I'm masking and wearing goggles still.
Wow.
So it's, a very strange dichotomy. I'm okay with it. The patients that I work with are very at risk for illness in general, for infectious disease. So I'm fine with, wearing the mask there, and I don't have any particular issue or concern with it. It's just kind of a strange kind of hanging between the balance. I look very much forward to being able to see my patients' faces because they are still masking as well. And it's sometimes hard to read if somebody's smiling behind the mask just by their eyes. Some people, their eyes are very telltale, and other people, they are not. I'm a social worker, so I'm very much reading people's faces. That's, part of my training. So it's just been an interesting year. It's really presented a lot of challenge.
Would you say, Lisa,
really
that a lot of people in the healthcare industry are either exhausted or are themselves traumatized by the year they've been through?
Probably yes to both. I mean, it just kind of depends on where people have worked. I think, people that have worked in the intensive care units and on COVID units, I would say, yes, they're very, compassion fatigued, I guess is the word that I would use.
Yeah.
Where it's giving, and knowing that you're at risk, especially for when you're caring for patients that are known to be positive and known to be very symptomatic in those kinds of settings.
Jerry and Debbie?
Yeah, if I can just offer a couple thoughts, Lisa, if you listen to our show, and I'll take two, that we both, Debbie is always saying that, nurses, healthcare professionals, teachers, people like that are going to have a very special place in heaven. So that certainly goes for you too. And thank you for the birthday wishes tomorrow. Happy birthday to you tomorrow as well. I think one of the things that's been, I think, most frustrating for me has been the uncertainty. And that's because every state is putting out different guidelines, every county, every city. And so there comes a point where you really don't know quite what to do in a given situation.
Yeah.
And we'll be praying for you, like you said, when you be able to see your patients' faces, see their smiling faces. I know in the line of work that you do, that has to be so important. The eye contact, the emotions, the facial expressions, all of that has got to be such an important part of what you do. So that's been missing for you for a while. So I know, but I'll definitely be praying that you have a return to that sooner rather than later.
Lisa, thank you very, very much for the call. And happy birthday wishes for you tomorrow from us here at Catholic Answers as well. Our number here is 888-318-7884. Jerry and Debbie are our guests. You know them from Take Two with Jerry and Debbie mornings on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. And if you don't know this, I'll let you know. They also have a network of life coaches that they're committed to this community of people who help one another. And if you want to know more about that, go to standtalltoday.com. Standtalltoday.com. Let's see who else we got here on the line. Oh, well, the lines are pretty full, actually. So we'll head to Manville, Rhode Island, watching on Facebook Live. Marie in Manville, Rhode Island. Thanks for being with us, Marie. Go ahead with your question or comment for Jerry and Debbie.
Yes. I have 2 adult autistic children.
Oh, Marie.
And they have a lot of... Yes.
I know you.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, you do. Hi, how are you?
Very good. Now, I feel like Jerry and Debbie. I'm doing community now on the radio.
There you go.
Marie is a very important part of our Facebook family here at Catholic Answers. I didn't mean to cut you off, though, Marie. Go ahead with your question.
No problem. Yes, I have 2 adult autistic children, and they tend to have a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear, especially my oldest son of 42. What can I do to make things better for them? What I do is always repeat what Jesus said, be not afraid.
Yeah.
And that's my mantra, more or less. And we're all fully vaccinated because of our high, I'm a diabetic. And so the whole family's diabetic. So I did it for them. And
well, Marie, I'll tell you what, we have to take this break. We'll let Jerry and Debbie respond when we come back. It's wonderful to hear your voice. Most of us Catholic parents agree our number one goal in life is to pass on the faith to our children. But here's the bad news. Today's world has a million ways to steal your kid's soul. Don't be afraid, says Father Sebastian Walsh. God loves your children even more than you do, and He desires their salvation more than anything. In his groundbreaking new book, Always a Catholic, Father Walsh shows you how to cooperate with God to bring about the fulfillment of His will for your kids. Always a Catholic reminds us that keeping our kids in the faith is about the way we live our Catholicism in our own lives and as a family from day to day. Order your copy of Always a Catholic by visiting shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. It's free, and you'll have instant access to our daily broadcast, the schedule of upcoming shows, and you'll even be able to search the archive and listen to thousands of past shows. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Matt Swaim here. Tomorrow on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll mark the feast of St. Junipero Serra by doing a virtual pilgrimage to the California missions with Diana von Glahn from The Faithful Traveler. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back. Before we head back to the phones, I was supposed to tell you this before, and I better tell you now because it ends at midnight. All this month, we've been talking about how you can get Catholic Answers School of Apologetics courses at a very, very low rate. A full course for just $50, one of the mini courses for just $25. And since it ends at midnight, I don't want to just roll past that and not mention it. So you just go to shop.catholic.com, find the School of Apologetics category, click there, and any course you want to take. If it's a full course, it's just $50 until midnight tonight. And if it's one of the mini courses, it's just $25. On the line is a really good friend of this program, Marie in Rhode Island, who visits with us several times a week at least, or rarely misses visiting with us on Facebook, and called to talk with Jerry and Debbie. She has 2 adult autistic sons who are experiencing a great deal of anxiety around the COVID pandemic. Would either one of you want to respond, Jerry or Debbie?
Yes, I would love to make a few comments. Marie, thank you so much for calling in and sharing the experience, because I think it's something that we can all relate to, a level of anxiety, because it just what Jerry said earlier, just the unknowns of how to actually behave when everything is changing. I mean, just look at the news for the past year, over a year. Every day it was a different ground rule, a different guideline for us, and that's really hard to function in. And so and let me just share something, Marie. Jerry and I, we don't have any special training in autism or anything like that. So you would be the best teacher on this, Marie, because you're the mother of autistic adult children, and so you would know better than us. But just from a basic life skills perspective, let me just share this. When we're struggling with anxieties, worries, fears, what if this happens? How will I react? The what ifs and the howls, they call them, right? They can really keep us very much trapped and paralyzed. And so the way to get out of that, and there's many different ways to do it, but just like what you're saying, to remind ourselves how much we need to trust in Jesus. So Jesus, I trust in you. Absolutely. Build that trust. But then also to have confidence in just being yourself. Sometimes when we just say, hey, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little bit, apprehensive, hesitant. It's okay, because when we acknowledge that it's happening, sometimes it doesn't have as much power over us. It's when we let it consume us and overwhelm us that we then get stuck, and we actually can go backwards. So I always tell folks, fear and anxiety and words like that, yes, they're not of God, meaning that God doesn't relate to those emotions or those feelings, because our God is a God of, that's big and bold and everything that's life-giving, right? And fear and anxiety, that keeps us trapped. So all we have to do is just acknowledge this is weighing on us, and we're going to let it pass. We're not going to hold on to it, and we're just going to let it pass, because it's something that really cannot have great power over us unless we say it does, meaning that we are saying, that it's bigger than God, and we know that's not true. So when we acknowledge all that, we can actually kind of work through the fear that much quicker, the anxiety. I don't know if I made any sense on that. It's kind of a quick life skill principle, but I would love. Can we go back to Marie?
Yeah, sure, Marie. How's that for you, Marie?
Oh yeah, it's great. And one more thing, my daughter and I went to her best friend's wedding this past Sunday. Nobody was masking because Rhode Island's fully open. And when we came back home, there was about 125 people. She says, Mom, are we going to get COVID now? And I said, no. I said, no, because we're fully vaccinated. But we had so much fun. It was so good to see her friends.
Yeah.
I have a boy and a girl, that are autistic. So it was wonderful to be out with her friends, and she was dancing and just talking to her best friend that she's known since first grade. It was wonderful. So no, she's not as bad as the young man. I can say, oh no, don't worry about it. Put it out of your mind. But I let them choose whether to mask or not. They go out with a staff person one-on-one, and it's up to them whether they want to mask. They usually bring one along. So I let them make that decision.
Marie, you just sound like the greatest mom. God bless you. I'm so glad to hear that about getting out again. And you want a copy? You want me to send you a free copy of my book about Jesus, a teacher of strange things? Do you want? I
have it. I'm reading it now. I'm halfway through. Thank you, though.
Wait, so I literally cannot give away my book, is what you're saying, Marie? I don't want you to think. No, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Could I give you maybe one of Trent Horn's books? Is there any book that you will accept free, Marie?
Well, I'll take another one of yours, and I can give it away to somebody that needs it.
Well, Now, don't just do it to make me feel better, Marie. Okay, thanks.
No.
But we're going to send you a virtual library of books. But you got to hang on so that our Marie will get your address. Okay, Marie?
Okay, thank you so much.
God bless you, sister. I'm so glad we got to
God
talk
bless
with you.
Yes, me too.
All right. You got that, Marie? I put her on hold. Okay. That's just so nice to get to talk with Marie because we've known her for so long here. That was very, very nice. We're talking about how you doing, getting back to your relationships, getting back into the world after COVID. You're welcome to call and just share how the experience is going. If you have a question or a problem that you'd like help with from Jerry and Debbie, you're welcome to call for that as well. 888-318-7884. Up next, in Columbia, Missouri. Oh, listening on Ave Maria Radio. David in Columbia, Missouri. Glad to have you, David. Go ahead with your question or comment for Jerry and Debbie.
It's more of a comment. I'm a chronic cancer patient, and I live in a state where the vaccination rate is very low. And I travel to Houston for medical and go through states that are very low in vaccination rates where it is all open and no one wears a mask. So a comment is, if you see people wearing a mask, it's usually for a good reason. And please give them the social distancing. But they are trying to live their life as well, but they are, for their life's sake, need to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. So,
David, I'm so glad you said that.
That's something to be aware of.
Yes. Okay. So you're out in the world. You're getting cancer treatment. You're wearing the mask to prevent picking up this virus in addition to the cancer treatment. And I have to say, I have seen some people in the public who almost are making a point of not social distancing from someone who's wearing a mask. Like they're going out of their way. I maybe I'm reading the social signs wrong, but it just seems like. I don't know. It seems very aggressive or passive aggressive in a way. So I'm glad you made that point, David. Jerry and Debbie, what do you got for David?
Well, a thought that came to my mind right away is, David, thank you for kind of opening all of our eyes to this. Not that we didn't kind of have that sensibility already, but a lot of people don't. I think in our exuberance to kind of like has been said on the show before, throw off the masks and try and get back to some normalcy of life, which is very understandable on anybody's part. Who wouldn't want to do that? But at the same time, you've helped to open our eyes and remind us that when we see somebody with a mask on, it may be someone, like you said, in your situation with the chronic illness. It may be someone who just is doing it as a safety precaution. It may be someone who's not vaccinated. We don't know. So I think it's very, very important that we definitely not judge anybody either way. I mean, if you're wearing a mask, we can't judge people who aren't wearing masks, and vice versa. This is the thing. Everybody says this all the time. We're in this together. Well, we got to act like it and treat each other with the respect and dignity that everybody deserves.
David?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Any last thoughts for us? I think we all really appreciate that you called and made the comments you did. Anything else you want to share?
Just that, a mask, I know lots of made in the media about, being a political, sign of which side you're on or whatever, and it's not that, even though my state, it definitely is that, but, just, like I said, just give people, the courtesy. They have a mask, usually it's for a reason, and thanks for letting me share that comment.
Debbie?
Well, David, real quickly, I think I heard you say that you're going through treatment for cancer. I just wanted to say that I had cancer in 1994, and from one cancer thriver to another, David, stay strong. Please tap into your relationship with your guardian angels. Surround yourself with all of your go-to saints, because you have a lot of heavenly support, David, and you certainly have our support, because I had gone through the cancer experience. I really know what it feels like and how alone you can feel, but I don't ever want you to feel that way, and stay strong, okay, brother?
Thank you. This is actually, I think, my 7th or 8th cancer since childhood, and the only reason I am here is for the miracles of God, but that's a whole different, 2-hour discussion at some other time.
Oh, it never hurts. It never hurts to give praise to God, though, David. You're always welcome to do that here. David, Want me to send you a free copy of my book about Jesus called A Teacher of Strange Things?
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. That makes me feel better. Now I can go to the break. Thanks, David. Even if you're just saying it to make me feel better, thanks. Hang on. We're going to send you, we'll get your address and we'll send you a copy of the book. Right back with more right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hang on. We'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Do you love sharing the gospel and want to learn to be more effective? Join the St. Paul Street Evangelization online School of Evangelization. You will learn to build bridges of trust and make disciples by befriending strangers, proclaiming the gospel, inviting people to the church, and praying with others. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you are unable to give, we'll give you a membership at no cost. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN, teaching the truth.
Thank you so very much, first of all, for this ministry. You have no idea what a blessing you and EWTN have been in my life and for my life, and I just thank you for that.
Well, first off, I'd like to say God bless you for your ministry, and my wife prayed daily for EWTN. It's a game changer in our world.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Jerry and Debbie are our guests. We're talking about getting back into life, getting back into relationships as the COVID begins to, at least apparently, begins to recede. If you have questions or comments in that regard, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. One of the things that comes with my job here as the host of Catholic Answers Live is getting yelled at by the fundraising department because I don't mention Society 315. So here... Hi, David. Director of Development here at Catholic Answers. I don't really get yelled at.
I think I did yell at you earlier today.
No, you did not. Did you yell?
Oh, okay. I thought I did, but if you say I didn't, then okay, good.
Wait, did you? No, but I did hear Christine, who runs Society 315, a wonderful society here. She said to me the other day, "Have you been mentioning Society 315 on the air?" And I thought, "Nope, I haven't." And so I lied to her, but
kind of a face palm.
Yeah, it was one of those face palms. So I said, "I'm so glad you're here." But tell us about Society 315. How's it going? How many people are in it? And what is it?
You know what? It's a great thing, and it really ties into the topic today. One of the things that we are all, in one way or another, in various ways, looking forward to getting back to community, right? And some of us are moving back into this mindset a little more slowly than others for good reason. One of the things that really inspired our creation of Society 315 was this idea that there is a craving for community.
Yeah.
And Society 315 is a form of that. So what is Society 315? It is our brand new monthly Givers Club. The 315 comes from 1 Peter 3:15, which is kind of the apologist's touchstone Bible verse, right?
Be prepared.
Always be prepared to give a defense of the hope that is within you. Do so with charity and reverence, right? And that's where it came from. But what we've done is invite folks for $10 or more per month. You can join Society 315. You go to casociety315.com, casociety315.com. You sign up at least $10 a month, and you get a great T-shirt, which I'm holding up here for our YouTube folks and our Facebook Live folks. You get a great T-shirt, a car magnet, and a 20% off discount on anything that Catholic Answers produces on our shop. And in addition, one of the big focuses of this club is exclusive content. So we just last week had a webinar with Joe Heschmeyer, our newest apologist. Only for Society 315 members.
And I can tell you what happens is you get a little note in your inbox, which I got.
Correct.
And it says this special event is happening. If you want to join for Society 315 members. It's really nice.
That's right. And we provided some ebooks. We've done some other content. The recording of our recent retreat with Father David McConey was available just for Society 315 members. So it's an opportunity to be part of this community, to get a little bit of free swag, right, with the T-shirt and the magnet, connect more deeply with the apostolate, And monthly givers are so important to our fundraising, so important to our budgetary process. The more monthly givers we have, the smoother the income into the apostolate is. And we like to say that our monthly givers keep the lights on.
They do.
They really do. And one of the beautiful things is, so we've got now almost 1,200 members. We've been doing this for about, going on 5 months.
That's wonderful.
It's
Thank
really,
you to everybody who's joined.
It is, and it's such a reflection of the people who love Catholic Answers, love the work that we do, and they want to be a part of it. And even of our 40 or so employees, more than half of our employees, you, me, Christine, Chris Check, our president,
I'm
are also
primarily
members.
a member because I'm scared of Christine. I just want you to know that.
Whatever it takes,
Yeah, she came to my office and said,
Yeah.
you have to join Society.
Yeah.
I said, how much?
Sometimes fear is effective.
It is with me, I'll tell you. CASociety315.com,
That's right.
CASociety315.com. And if you're in the society and you come to one of our events, we're going to try to do special stuff.
So,
with you.
a couple last things as we get back to the rest of the show. So first, if you join Society 315 and you want to come to our conference, you will get, after you join, a discount code for $40 off a ticket to the conference.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so $40 off for new Society 315 members. And second, we're going to have an exclusive social event for Society members at the conference. Not only do you get a discount on a ticket to the conference, but you'll be able to participate in an exclusive social as well.
Thank you, David. Thanks very much.
You bet.
CASociety315.com.
That's the website. And one more thing, I do want to say, Jerry and Debbie, my wife Norma loves your show. She's been a listener from the very beginning. She says it's one of the best shows on EWTN, hands down.
Oh, tell her thanks.
So sweet.
What does she think of Catholic Answers Live? And I've never gotten any feedback from
It's
Norma.
a close second, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Thanks. Thanks, Norma.
That is so sweet. Thank
I've
you
actually,
so much.
I've been on cruises with Norma, and she picks Jerry and Debbie. Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough.
We love you, Norma.
She's a good one. All right, let's go to Michael in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Michael, so happy to have you. Go ahead with your comment or question for Jerry and Debbie.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wanted to pass on to make the comment. You guys were talking earlier about, this whole thing, the pandemic has brought out the best of people and also the worst of people. And my wife and I, we've been married for 21 years and we have 7 children. And, I always thought we did a really good job when it came to health, and when we weren't feeling well, that we kept the kids home. We didn't go to people's parties or what have you. And I thought we always did a good job. And then this pandemic hit, and boy, we have never experienced getting so many dirty looks in our lives before, and negative comments because we were out, as you had mentioned earlier, in a park or out just walking down a sidewalk and not wearing a mask, and just getting negative feedback about that, whether it was verbal or nonverbal, and that was just really sad to see that because I think if we weren't kind of at the point where we were at with our faith, I think we'd really feel like, gosh, we're terrible Christians. We're not, we've always thought we've done a good job. And now all of a sudden this whole thing hits and, you kind of felt like I never was doing a good job with my health and protecting my children and thinking about other people as well. And then also what was really kind of, demoralizing for us as a Catholic family was, it just seemed like there wasn't very much among both the laity and the faithful within our and the clergy within our church. There wasn't a lot of heroic heroism or courage. It just seemed like when this hit, can't receive the body and blood of Christ anymore. Can't go to church, and I understand why. But gosh, I would have these conversations with my wife and say, boy, wouldn't you want to go receive the body and blood of Christ? I mean, would Jesus really allow me to get the coronavirus by receiving his body and blood? And I understand, being together in a group at church, but geez, I mean, that would be that's the one place that my wife and I wanted to be, during this whole thing. And that was really hard as well as a family. And it was hard to figure out what to tell the kids, even though there was a pandemic going on. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to put Jesus kind of on the back burner now and receive him spiritually because of this pandemic, when I feel like we should have been telling our kids we need to go to church. We need to receive the body and blood of Christ now more than ever. And I'll just be quiet from there.
All right, hang on. We'll come back to you. Debbie?
Well, I just want to say, Michael, you're making some really good points, and it kind of just reinforces some of the things that we were saying about this idea of fear being so pervasive and being very powerful when it becomes overwhelming. The reality of that is that when people are driven by fear or worry or the unknown, or they don't know exactly how to behave because it's not set, it doesn't make sense in our brains, so we're kind of in a little bit of a chaos, right? People will do outlandish things. People will do rude things. People will sink down to that level instead of rising up and rising above it. And I just, it really, in my opinion, it does have to it goes back to this idea that if we allow so many things to overwhelm us, it is going to keep us paralyzed. And a dear friend, I want to just say this because I think it ties in beautifully to what Michael was saying as a remedy for the kind of the rudeness or the, what's happening out there in the world. Here's something that I was sharing that we could do. A wonderful friend, Michelle, who's a lay Carmelite, sent me this prayer, and I'm telling you, this for me was a spiritual game changer. And you say it 3 times. And here's how the prayer goes. It says, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I bind the spirits of," and then if you want to put fear, worry, anxiety, anything you want to put that is a limiting word that is not of God, okay? And we know God is much more powerful than any of those feelings we could be feeling, right? I cast them out and I command them to go immediately and directly to the foot of the cross. I believe this is a Carmelite prayer, and you say it 3 times. And I will tell you that when I kept practicing and praying this specific prayer, it helped me release those overwhelming feelings that really can govern the way people act towards one another. I just wanted to share that, Michael and Cy and Jerry, and I'm not sure if any of you have heard that prayer before, but I was just introduced to it this year.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and I think you make a really good point that we need to do more praying for each other. I think you make a good point to have more heavenly courage and strengthen our virtues so that we can help each other, support each other, and bring each other closer to Christ. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks very, very much. I think in many ways, priests. I don't want to pick too much on the priests, because many of them were just obeying what the bishop told them, and that they really, you're a pastor or an associate pastor or something like that, and you're not in a position to disobey the bishop. So it's not always a lack of courage that made a priest close the parish or that kind of thing. And I did notice a lot of priests, certainly the priests at my parish at St. Mary's here in Oceanside, California, they were very courageous, and they did everything they could while being obedient to the bishop, to hear confessions, to be with people. I was very, very impressed with them. I'm sure that not all priests were the same, but I don't like to just dismiss it as cowardice on the part of a priest if they closed the parish. If what they were doing was being obedient to the bishop, that's their duty. That's not a negotiable for them, and they made a promise of obedience. So I just want to say that before we went on to the next call. Rex in Texas, listening on Red Sea Catholic Radio. You're up next. Go ahead, Ron.
This is Ron. I know we're short for time, so I'll be real quick. Had a lot of things to say. But real quick, one thing about the mask, I understand people have the right to wear it or not wear it. They don't like being told by the government. But, when smallpox vaccine came in, the people at that time, they didn't start crying saying government is intervening. I mean, that thing saved lives and saved, a lot of people from a lot of, ailments from being crippled and so forth. But, I wonder what would have happened back then if we had the same mentality then as we do today, infringement of your rights. And then the talk about, they're uncomfortable. Well, do they realize how uncomfortable of an intubation tube is for those elderly people that are sick? I mean, they're not thinking about that. They don't see the other side.
Well, Ron, we're very individualist. I want to let Jerry or Debbie respond. You only have about 20 seconds.
I think you're making a good point, Ron. It's like you said. I mean, it was a necessary thing in many cases. It obviously, I'm sure wearing the mask and social distancing and stuff saved a lot of lives. I think there were a lot of, negative things that came from all of that as well. So I think it's a mix of blessings and not blessings, I guess.
Debbie?
Oh, I totally agree. And I just think that the clearer messages we can get from the top down from our government, I think will really help all of us be able to behave better as Catholic Christians.
And if you got anger left over, to let go of it. It's not going to do anybody any good to hold on to it. It's time to forgive. That's what and move on. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Debbie. Folks can listen to you every morning, weekdays on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network, and in the middle of the night as well when they replay you. Also, visit them at say it, Debbie, the website real quick.
StandTallToday.com. Free consultations are there.
StandTallToday.com. Coming right back with a conversation about the Catholic view of the human body. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live on this Wednesday afternoon. So happy to have you with us. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. Got a great hour this hour, and you're welcome to call 888-318-7884 if you'd like to get in on the conversation. 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is Dr. Angela Franks. She's a professor of theology at St. John's Seminary in Boston. She writes on sexual ethics, and she's done all kinds of scholarly work there, and you can find her writing all around the internet. You can visit her website to find it all gathered. It's called angelafranks.com. And some of her recent writing has been kind of around the problem or the disconnect between the secular idea of the human body and the Catholic idea of the human body. The secular idea of the value of the human body, the purpose of the human body, what is a human body, what is a human person in relation to their body, all of that. And what's the secular view and what's the Catholic view of those things. Dr. Angela Franks, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. It's very glad to be here.
So, what is a body? Maybe you can't answer what is a human without answering what is a body. And this is the question that you have been asking recently. What is a human? So start there wherever you'd like. What do we need to know as Catholic people that will help us to understand who we are so we can live as we're supposed to live?
Yeah, so we were really blessed in the 20th century to have some really good magisterial reflection on this question coming from John Paul II. And in his Theology of the Body, what he tells us is that the body reveals the person. And so for John Paul II, the body is a sign. It's the visible reality that expresses us as people. And the value of the body is for the human body. Our value is related to our value as human beings, and the fact that the human body and only the human body, out of all the other animal bodies that are out there, only the human body expresses a person.
Yes.
And so that's both its value, but also its limits, right? It's not the whole story. It's one piece of the story of being human, a necessary piece, but it's not the whole piece. And so I think that what's happened especially in the last 75 years or so, the value of the body has been detached from the value of the person. And we try to make sense of the body on its own without understanding it as a sign of the person. And so the way I like to think about it, it's kind of as though, if aliens came to Earth and saw a stop sign, like it wouldn't mean anything to them, right? Or
nothing. Right.
Stoplight, it doesn't mean anything, right? So if a sign loses its connection to what it's telling you about, then it doesn't mean anything anymore. And that's what's happened with the body, where it doesn't mean anything anymore. We don't think of it as being a sign of the person. And so therefore, we're very confused about what it means at all, if it means anything.
So we end up behaving as if the body either matters too much or too little. Is that a fair way of summarizing what you're saying about this modern or lack of conception of what the body really is?
Yeah, exactly right. It's both too important because we think it has to stand on its own. So instead of it being a sign pointing to the person, instead of the stop sign having a function to tell us something, we have to make it mean something on its own without any reference to a person, and that's just never going to work. And so we try to make it independent of the person, and that doesn't work. Or we just belittle it. We just say, oh, it's just happiness is just a bunch of neurons firing. What we do in our body's not that important. So we either make it an idol, or we make it garbage, and neither one is true. And so the church helps us to both recognize the importance of the body, but also to relativize it.
There's a problem even with the Christian view of the body, however. Even a Christian who says, I believe in the soul, for example, I believe it's a problem, a misconception, I think, of the soul, if I'm understanding your writing correctly, that the idea that the soul is in the body, or is, I think it's Frank Sheed you quote in one spot about it's like a butter spread thinly over the body. Yeah, but so we don't say the body's just a machine. We don't say the body is the totality of who I am. So how are we to understand the soul and its relationship to the body?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because we often treat the soul as something disconnected from the body. But in fact, the philosophy that the church wound up embracing says that the soul is intimately connected to the body for us as human beings, because the soul, the technical language is, the soul forms our body. It's the thing that makes everything hold together. And we can kind of see this, like when someone dies, when the soul leaves the body, what you have left is a corpse, and eventually it's just gonna decay, because like there's nothing holding it together. But when you're living, that doesn't happen, right? Like everything is being held together and is functioning the way it's supposed to. And so
barely
really
at
the
this
soul
point, but
yeah,
it sometimes feels like it's all falling apart, Angela.
It's
but
a little, yeah. But so the soul is really the life of our body that's holding it together. But for us, it's so, that's true of my pet hedgehogs. I have 2 pet hedgehogs, and they're alive, and they're being held together by their little hedgehog life.
Soul.
But yeah, in fact, that's confusing to people, but that's the language we use, in fact. But for us, our souls are also the things that give us the power to know and to love. So these spiritual powers that transcend the physical. And that's why human beings are so weird, because we're this combination of body and soul. But the soul both transcends the body in the fact that we can know and love, but it also is the thing that holds together and keeps alive our body. So it's not just something that's kind of disconnected from our body.
Yeah. A lot of people in Boston have hedgehogs, or do you think you might be the only person in the city of Boston to have hedgehogs?
I know I'm not the only person, because the person who gave me hedgehogs also has hedgehogs, but there might not be many of us.
Is that person still your friend, or did that end it?
We love our hedgehogs.
I'm sure you do. Everyone who has them loves them, as far as I know, but you're the only one I know. Our number is 888-318-7884. We're talking about the Catholic understanding of the body, the Catholic Christian understanding of the body, as juxtaposed with the modern secular, I almost am loath to say understanding of the body, because it's a lack of understanding of the body, really, a darkness about what the body is and what it is for, and therefore how it is to be treated. Your questions are welcome. 888-318-7884. Dr. Franks, I have to take a quick break, but when I come back, I want to ask you about the person who might say, okay, this is very interesting theoretical talk, but in practical terms, why does it matter that we get our thinking right about the body? But I'll let you feed the hedgehogs, and we'll be right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Stay with us for more Catholic Answers Live.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Hi, this is Dave Vashers, president of Annunciation Radio. The scripture says, when the word of God goes out, it doesn't return void, but accomplishes that for which it was sent. We regularly hear from individuals whose lives have been dramatically changed as a result of listening to Catholic radio. Tell a family member, tell a friend, tell the whole world. Change your station, and it'll change your life.
The world needs EWTN Catholic Radio, now more than ever.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Thanks again for being with us. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Dr. Angela Franks is our guest. She teaches theology in Boston at the seminary there in Boston, the Catholic seminary there in Boston, and has an article called "What is a Human" in the Catholic World Report that you can find and read that's related to what we're talking about, and other articles, other writings on sexuality, the human body, sexual ethics. You can find all of that at AngelaFranks.com, AngelaFranks.com. So it does, I think, to some folks, there's probably a sense of, okay, what's the practical application of this? And I suppose that has to do with our modern, we always want to know, okay, give me the bottom line. What's the bottom line on this? So is there a practical reason to be concerned that we get our thinking about the body right?
It's a great question. It's very practical, in fact. One of the things that John Paul II talks about is the importance of integration, that in order to be a healthy human being, we have to integrate the fact that we have all of these aspects of ourselves that pertain to being physical, to having a body, and all of these aspects about ourselves that include our spiritual powers. And we are not healthy human beings by rejecting a part of us. And the default way of dealing with the fact that we have a body in our world around us is often to pretend we don't. And you can find a religious version of this maybe, where it's just kind of, people kind of want to get away from the body and think they're kind of vaguely ashamed that they have a body. So there's certainly, this is not only something you find among non-believers, but, back when I was in high school and junior high, eating disorders were a thing that were talked about. And if you, and I've done a little bit of research and writing on that. And if you look at that, it's pretty clear that what's going on is that people are denying the fact that they have a body, or they're trying to minimize that aspect of themselves, often very literally. And you find that today, I think, in questions around transgenderism, where people treat their body as the problem. I don't feel, and so this is also what you see in eating disorders, I think. I don't feel comfortable in my skin, so what's the problem? Well, the problem must be my skin and not me and my feelings, right? And so it's actually extremely practical and extremely important that we learn to accept that we have bodies, and that this is part of being a healthy human being, to have a body. It's not something that we want to reject or get rid of.
This idea that this is a very striking thought, and I don't think we realize we're doing it. We turn the body into the problem. That certainly in this whole transgender conversation, or whatever we're having about transgenderism, the movement that we're in the midst of, there's a refusal, really, to say that the problem is anything other than the body is not right. And that, what do you say to a society that wants to put all the blame on the body when the body's not even capable of being this level of a problem?
Exactly right. Yeah. I mean, to get back to, our love of the practical, one thing you can say is it's not going to work, right? Okay, just like you don't treat eating disorders by handing an anorexic diet pills. Like, it doesn't work. If people have spiritual and emotional and psychological challenges and problems, it doesn't work to treat those problems as bodily problems. Now, of course, there can be, pharmaceuticals can be helpful in things, but the treatment for gender dysphoria, for having a sense that one doesn't belong in one's body, the standard treatment today is to treat that as a bodily problem, and it's just simply doomed to failure. And we're beginning to see here and there, we've seen in Great Britain that people are starting to sue because they're like, I was an adolescent, you put me on hormones, you did all of these things often irreversible to my body, and I didn't have a bodily problem. Right. And you guys, as the health experts, should have known that the 16-year-old is not maybe going to grasp that, but the doctors certainly should. And we're not in a place in our society where that's being recognized.
No, and I think that that's right. We're going to have a wave of regret and recrimination coming up very shortly when people reach an age where they're mature enough to go, I was manipulated into this, or you treated my body when there was nothing wrong with my body. We used to have a term for that. It was called mutilation, but you can't say that anymore. You're not permitted to say that. Is it also fair to say that there's a social dimension to this, that on the social level, we and this is not an idea that's original to me. So if it's a good idea, then I just want you to know it didn't come from me. But some women have told me this, that often a woman's body is treated as a social problem, in that if she wants to participate in the workplace, for example, what needs to be solved is her body, not the workplace. If she wants to have children and be a professional, what needs to be solved is the body, wanting to produce that many. Is her fertility, in other words, is a problem. It's not that our society has a wider problem of not integrating mothers, for example, into the rest of society.
Yeah, so I actually, I've been on this show before talking about eugenics and contraception. And so this is an idea that's like 100 years old, more than 100 years old, that goes back to Margaret Sanger, who began scapegoating female fertility for basically being the cause of all problems. Like whatever problem there was, Sanger thought female fertility was the problem, but it was an outlier to think that way. And part of the sexual revolution was to really mainstream that way of thinking. And it really is true that women's bodies, female fertility is scapegoated more than male fertility. And I think part of it is that it reminds when female bodies are ordered toward reproduction, when they're having babies and they're nursing and they're doing all of these things, it's a protest against the idea that a female body is simply an object of sexual use and manipulation and exploitation, right? It's kind of it's sort of the anti-porn, right? The anti-pornography, to have, women using their sexual organs, their reproductive organs, for sexual and reproductive things. So what we're facing with in our pornified culture is that there's deep discomfort with the female body on the part of women, multiple reasons. But one of these reasons, Abigail Favale has written really good stuff on this. One of the reasons is that, we're living in this sex-saturated culture where girls growing up don't want to be the object of, sexual exploitation. And, they feel very self-conscious anyway. They're teenage girls, right, going through puberty. And so in a sense, maybe eating disorders, which are still with us, of course, but,
Sure.
maybe 30 years ago, that was one protest against this, their sexuality and feeling like they were a sexual object. And these days, they just decide not to be women anymore. And so it seems to be that adolescents who are saying all of a sudden they have gender dysphoria and they want to have this treated, it tends to be girls more than boys. And it's probably partly because of this, the sex-saturated culture that we're in. And so it is part of the problem that we're used to treating female bodies as problems to fix.
Yeah.
And that's really the transgender mindset.
Dr. Angela Franks is our guest. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. A caller who dropped, but I want to share her question, Leslie from Florida. If a person's soul leaves the body, is it still the same person? Is that body a different person at that point? And this has to do with getting a proper understanding of the relationship between body and soul. How does a Catholic theologian answer that?
It's a good question. You don't have what you have when the soul leaves the body is a corpse. You don't have a different person, because that would imply that there's a new body-soul complex, and precisely what you don't have anymore is a soul. And so to have a human person, you need both the body and the soul. Now, this leads to really sticky questions about like the soul after death and that sort of thing. But the traditional understanding is that at the resurrection of the dead, when it's not only which is not so much talking about our souls living on, but in particular talking about our bodies being raised, that it's really our bodies. Somehow, however God works that miracle, it's our bodies that our souls need to come back home to. And so this is really unique to Christianity, that there is this eternity to our bodies, but it needs to be that body-soul union together to have the person.
For it to be a person, right. So so this view then of this body soul, what did you call complex? Is that what you just said? Body soul complex or composite maybe? Would that be okay to use or no?
Sure.
Yep. Okay.
I think that works.
So this is important for us because to understand as well, because when you you used a word earlier called integration. And when you write about this, it's just so compelling. What does it mean to be integrated from the lowest levels of ourselves up to the highest levels of ourselves? Not treating any of those levels as problematic, but treating them all as needing to be integrated with one another.
Yeah, we're very complicated. It starts all the way down to the physical and the chemical and then the biological. And kind of as you go up the ladder, there are fewer and fewer other creatures that are at that level with us, right?
Right.
So you can have rocks and they're,
physical things.
Laws of physics and chemical things applied to them, but they're not alive, right? So they don't operate in the biological. So you go from the physical and the chemical and the biological. And then when you get to the higher animals, then you have these things that are tied to more complicated bodies. You have the capacity for emotions. You have the capacity to form social networks like you see with bees and ants and all that kind of thing, wolves. But then in human beings, because we go even further, we have reason and we have will, we can think and we can understand and we can choose. We can understand ourselves as that whole complex, and we can choose to embrace that and bring the body along with us as we use those distinctively human capacities to know and love. And so that's what's so beautiful about something like marriage, though also something like celibacy, where the body's not left behind. The body's an intrinsic part of this free, rational commitment that somebody's making to another human being in marriage or to, say, the priesthood or the religious life. You make that as a whole embodied person, and you're giving that whole gift of yourself to God, both body and soul, all of those powers together, as opposed to saying, well, I'm gonna be celibate because like my body makes me uncomfortable and I want to run away from it, which is basically the caricature of Catholic celibacy. That's not the truth of that's not real integration.
Okay, so this integration, however, it because the body is not just a nothing with no moral value, but it's integrated into the person that has tremendous, value beyond what really we have the language to describe the value of a human person. That means that there are certain limits on the use of the body that do not apply in the mind of the person who takes the secular view as the body as basically either a machine or just a receptacle for the higher soul. And so I don't know if you know of this phrase that people say now. It's called sex positive. And it means that they're not going to accept these limits on sexuality, that basically I think it's against the Christian view. It really, even though it doesn't sell itself that way, that's in fact what it is. The opposite to this view is Christianity. But it strikes me, and I want to ask you, because you're very, very insightful in this area, that the use of the phrase sex positive to talk about promiscuity, for example, or many partners or many different experiences is propaganda, because that's not positive. And that's what I would like you to respond to. Am I correct in that thinking?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So sex positive feminism really took over the women's rights movement when the sexual revolution got off the ground. And it is propaganda. You're correct. Because, who wants to be
sex negative. Yeah,
that sounds bad.
Yeah.
Right? but what is, as you're saying, what it simply means is, so this idea is like, we're going to be positive about all possible experiences of sex and not say that there's any limits. But that's not fully human activity, because it's part of being human to make choices that align with what's really good for the person. Right. You could have food positive dietitians who would say, just eat all the candy you want, because we're not going to say no. But that doesn't make any sense at all, because you're like, no, actually that's counterproductive, because if we just eat all the candy we want, that actually has a negative effect on us, and it's actually a negative thing to do. And the same is true with even more so when it comes to sexuality, because sexuality it's actually very similar to eating in the sense that it's a natural biological reality, but it's also this expression of intimacy and vulnerability. And if we treat it as just, a bodies coming together or something that doesn't somehow actually impact people, we're lying. Women do care if he calls the next morning, right? It's just hard not to care. And so that's the real sex positivity is Christianity.
Talking about the Catholic view, the Catholic Christian view of the human body with Dr. Angela Franks. Your call's welcome, 888-318-7884. I didn't know she was going to attack candy, but we'll be right back with more Dr. Angela Franks right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers is doing it again. We're holding our 7th annual Apologetics Conference this September in beautiful San Diego, California, and we'd like to see you there. Join us September 23rd to 26th for a lively and inspiring conference with an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith. It's a great chance to meet all your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and very special guests as we spend 4 days talking about worshiping and adoring our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is where it all begins. Don't miss what promises to be the event of the season. Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite, inspire, and inform your faith. Seats are still available, but they're going fast. Enter promo code EARLY to save $30. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 888-291-8000 to register.
Matt Swaim here. Tomorrow on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll mark the feast of St. Junipero Serra by doing a virtual pilgrimage to the California missions with Diana Von Glahn from The Faithful Traveler. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. We're very, very grateful you're here with us. Thank you for being with us on this Wednesday afternoon, or maybe it's a Thursday morning if you're listening in the Philippines or Australia or Singapore or anywhere on the other side of the international date line. We're just as happy to have you with us as we can be. Dr. Angela Franks is our guest. She's a professor of theology at St. John's Seminary in Boston. And it's one of those things where now we think where the seminarians are getting some good education. And we're talking about her writing. She writes on sexual ethics. You can find all of her work at angelafranks.com. But we're talking about recent writing on the human body. What is a human is one of her recent articles. That one's in Catholic World Report. You can find her other writing at the website I just mentioned, AngelaFranks.com. And we're talking about why the Catholic view of the body is different and continues to be different, hasn't yet acquiesced to pressure to change and become like the rest of culture, but also why that's good news for us, why that's the Catholic Christian view of the body is one that is ennobling, and if we embrace it, can actually make a practical difference in the quality of our life, our own lives, and the life of our fellows. You're welcome to call with your questions or comments. If you disagree with us, you are always welcome here. If you disagree with what we've said about sex positivity or what we've said about transgender issues, you're always welcome. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. We just ask that you be nice to me. You can be as tough as you want on Dr. Franks, but you got to be nice to me when you call. Dr. Franks, I guess the thing that I want to ask you about is that the relationship between the kind of modern consumerist idea and the modern idea of the body, where it often seems like the body either only exists, A, to consume things, or B, to be consumed by others, either by its beauty or by its sexual power or that kind of thing. Is that a fair analysis? And how do we cure that? How do we convince people to move away from this consumerist view? Because it does actually bring a lot of wonderful sensations to people.
Yeah, that's really, really well put. Yeah, the generalized consumerism that we have all around us has definitely swept up the body with it. And you're right that, either the body is the thing consuming or the thing being consumed. John Paul II, in one of his earlier writings, he notes that the word consumere in Latin means to use up. Oh. And so that I think is a helpful lens into the question of consumerism, because you can say, on the one hand, well, what's the problem with consumerism? Like you said, it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Get some enjoyable sensations. Like, what's the problem? Are you so against pleasure? And of course, there's nothing wrong with consuming per se, but it's when it becomes an ism, when it really takes over a life, when our life becomes ordered toward more consumption, as opposed to the consumption being ordered toward a genuinely flourishing life, right? So we have to consume food, say, but if the whole purpose of our life, if we kind of organize our life to lead to better consumption of food, that means things are disordered. They're
Yes.
not, they're out of whack. And so when we treat our bodies like that, you see this a lot with like designer babies, for example. So you see this with human reproduction, where there's this tendency or this urge to view a baby as a consumer product, like how blonde and brainy can my baby be? I remember having a conversation with somebody who was having a hard time conceiving, and she said, all my life, I've been able to do whatever I wanted to do if I set my life to it, and I don't see why this should be any different.
Wow.
And the only thing I could say was, babies are still a gift, but that's,
right.
But that's the consumerist idea, that the baby is like a little product that we want to have, and can we like check all the boxes
Yes.
to have the right product come out? And that's a consumerist mentality, where what's ruling the day are our desires rather than the good of the thing that you're doing. In other words, can I contribute to this baby's life? Can I be a good mother? Can I lead this baby to virtue? So that's why it's so important. Catholicism doesn't deal with the good things of the world by saying, get rid of them. It says, yes, they're good, but in what order, like they can't be the most important good because that can only be God. So we have this challenge of aligning all the good things of the world so that they lead us to God instead of leading us away from God.
Again, Dr. Angela Franks is our guest. 888-318-7884 is our number. Chris in San Antonio, Texas is on the line. Chris is listening to Guadalupe Radio in San Antonio. Glad to have you, Chris. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Dr. Angela Franks.
Thank you. I'm going to try to get this question out. Years ago when I was teaching my son, I didn't have anything to teach him with, so I bought an old Baltimore Catechism, and where it teaches that man is a creature composed of body and soul. And so it really struck home with me about the body. It's not just a soul, it's a body and soul. But from an intellectual standpoint, I know the body is composed of many different elements, but 6 major types of elements like atom, hydrogen, carbon, and the others. And those are interchangeable. I mean, as we're growing, our bodies are taking in elements or giving off elements, but somehow it's our body, and it's always in a state of flux over the years. So what does the church teach, or like the integration of, like when I think of a resurrection, I really don't have no problem with it scientifically. I mean, if you got the blueprint, let's say DNA, and you have all the elements, and you have the power of God, you can reconstruct a body. But how is it our body? And it gets more, I guess, into a philosophical question. I'm just kind of curious if that topic's ever been approached, or
Sure. Yeah, I think you're asking the right person too. In what sense can we identify a person if the body is in this constant state of taking in and giving off and really becoming physically something new constantly?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's a question that philosophers in one way or the other have been asking for centuries. So it's, you're in good company, Chris. We are this strange combination of stability and change. And so all of that change that's very real that you're describing, that all of our cells are turning over, though not the neurons in our cerebral cortex, if I'm remembering that correctly, which is an interesting point in itself. But other than that, all of our cells are constantly turning over. And how is it still my body? And so you can kind of go, like, some philosophers have just said, well, it's not, and they kind of take it to its illogical conclusion. But we know instinctively that this is my kids, if somebody's sitting too close to them on the couch, they're like, get away. Like, they know it's their body, and they have a very good sense of where their body begins and ends. And so how is it? Well, so that's one reason why the soul is such an important part of the equation, because the soul is one piece that can help us explain how is it that we have continuity and identity over time. Because even though our, all those elements and so forth, everything's turning over, our soul is holding it together, again, as this body and not that body, as a living body and not a dead body. And when the soul and the body detach, in fact, all of that flux, it really just disperses, right? Like, so all of our elements do disperse, and eventually even, the skeletons crumble away into dust. And so, you really do, it really requires the soul to hold together a living body and really be the driver, so to speak, in all of that change, kind of keeping things on course and going in all together in the same direction.
Chris, does it make sense to you that that you would refer to the soul to explain that continuity?
One thing that really comes to mind is when Jesus, he rose from the dead and he ascended, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then Mary was assumed into heaven, right?
Yes.
So Jesus is in heaven with his mother and father, correct? And at the consecration, Jesus comes onto the altar, and where St. Paul says, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. I'm speaking in reference to Christ and his church. And so the attack on this idea of soul and body, I think that's where the attack's at, that we lose the sight that it goes back to the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the body and blood and soul and divinity of Christ. It's a human person with a body and soul, and so all of that, I'm trying to.
Chris, I think it's beautiful what you're doing, actually, and it does seem to me that there's something fundamental at the root of that, Dr. Franks, in that the incarnation of Christ, whatever else is revealed to us, the understanding of God become man is an affirmation of the body as important to God, that it's not an add-on or a disposable item. Would you agree?
Yeah, that in many ways is what's the stumbling block to the Greeks that Paul talks about, that we preach, that Christianity preaches the resurrection of the flesh that begins in Jesus's resurrection. And as you mentioned, Chris, that this is a continual presence. So even though Jesus, body and soul, ascends to heaven, there still is this continual sacramental presence of his whole human reality, body, blood, soul, and divinity, in particular in the Eucharist, and then in a mystical way in the church. And so Jesus's body is not something that was experienced by the apostles and the first Christians, and that now is completely remote from us. That it was important that Jesus's body continue to be sacramentally present to all of us in the church. And so I do think, and maybe this is where you're going, Chris, I really do think that the contemporary confusion about the body has led to confusion about the church as the body of Christ, because if bodies don't mean anything, then why do we have a church? I mean, it's just basically a big bureaucracy. It's like a giant Department of Motor Vehicles or something if it's not the body of Christ, And so I think it affects the church, and I think it's affected how Catholics believe and understand the Eucharist, which is something we've gotten data on in the last 5 years or so, that there's been this declining belief in the Eucharist. And I think one of the problems is that people don't know what to make of their own bodies, much less Jesus's body.
Wow. Yeah.
And what the heck does it mean that Jesus's body is there? Like, why would you do that? Like, why is that important if you don't understand what the human body means to begin with?
Chris, thank you so much for allowing us to have that conversation. Thank you for the questions and for the call. I have to take a quick break. We'll get to the callers who are on the line. Just hang on the line. We're going to get to you right after this. Very quick break. We'll be right back with Dr. Angela Franks on Catholic Answers Live.
You're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Unplanned, the true story of Abby Johnson.
I would be the youngest director in Planned Parenthood history.
She believed in a woman's right to choose.
I've had an abortion myself, so I don't have any problem with another woman making the same decision.
Until the day she saw something that changed everything.
Tiny, perfect little baby. And then it was just gone.
Now she's pulling back the curtain on the abortion industry. Unplanned.
Available at EWTNRC.com and the EWTN app.
A lot of people think that street evangelization involves yelling out of a bullhorn telling people that they're going to hell. Not so with St. Paul's Street Evangelization. Our methods are non-confrontational and effective. We simply offer information on the Catholic faith along with rosaries, miraculous medals, and prayer. Pope Francis wrote about how beautiful it is to see street preachers joyfully bringing Jesus to every corner of the earth. Street evangelization is fun and fruitful. Join us today at streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. There's 2 sales I keep forgetting to tell you about, and I got to now because I think they're both ending tonight at midnight. I'm not sure. But the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics, I know that one's ending tonight, the one where you can get a full course for $50 or one of the mini courses for $25. If you go over to shop.catholic.com and just click on the School of Apologetics section, you can see the whole list of courses and sign up for any course you want. And that's a very, very low price, but we'd love you to have it. Summer, great time to take a School of Apologetics course. The other one is my book, A Teacher of Strange Things, Who Jesus Was, What He Taught, and Why People Still Follow Him. It's 25% off when you check out and you use the promo code TEACHME, and I'm assuming that, I actually don't know, but it's the last day of the month, and often these deals go away at the end of the month. That also, you just go to shop.catholic.com and click on A Teacher of Strange Things and get 25% off when you check out using the promo code TEACHME. That's the 25% off is on the print copy and on the electronic copy. Our guest is Dr. Angela Franks. She's a wonderful writer on sexual ethics. She's a teacher. She is a professor at the seminary there in Boston, and you can find out all about her at angelafranks.com. I want to read you the next question. Again, a caller dropped. I don't know why we're dropping so many callers, but we've been dropping a lot of callers this hour. I think there are some people in the secular world making the same realization about sexual ethics and the human body that the Catholic Church has already established. I think if they investigate further, they would find that the Church is teaching the same things that they are discovering. Your response, that comes from Simon in Minnesota. Your response, Dr. Franks.
Yeah, I think that we saw, I don't know, how long has it been now, 5 years ago or so with #MeToo, we saw a lot of discontent being expressed, especially by women, over the sexual status quo, and obviously lots of problems with Me Too as well. But you did see this, that people were not happy, and it was suddenly acceptable for women to say that they were not happy with the sexual revolution, which normally you're not allowed to say that in polite secular company. And I think also another factor is the back to nature, the green influence, where people are like, okay, wait, I'm buying hormone-free chicken, and yet I'm like pumping really powerful hormones into myself via the pill. Like, this doesn't seem quite right. And in fact, it's not a very green thing to do at all. And if, you should investigate hormonal contraception if you're on it, because there are definitely some health considerations. And so I think that people are, it's sadly the one thing we can always rely on with evangelization is that sin makes people unhappy. Eventually, even if they don't know they're sinning, even if they're doing it with the best possible intentions, like we don't know why it is people are sinning, but it just naturally is not. It's like, eating the candy all day long, not to, knock on candy too much, but
it's very personal to me.
It just eventually makes you not function the way you're supposed to as a human being. And so I do think we're starting to see that with the sexual revolution. I don't know exactly where that's going to take us, but no doubt the Holy Spirit will help us make use of that.
There has been a lot of media lately about the COVID year. People thought there would be a baby boom that would come from the COVID year. Apparently, exactly the opposite is happening. And we have seen countries like Italy, of all places, Italy, over the last 25 years, not even having a replacement level of children. It does seem like we're getting there in the United States. I think many people thought, no, we're not going to get there in the United States. We're a different kind of country. Do you think that this is related to the body as a problem mentality of the world?
Definitely, yeah. I think, ironically, the sexual revolution, though it's removed the moral framework that used to be around sexuality that would limit our sexual activity. So the sexual revolution sort of removed that framework on the one hand, but on the other hand, one of the odd results is that people are having less sex. And one of the things that sociologists have known for a long time is that the people who report the most and the best sex are actually married couples. This is not news at all. This has been around for decades. And so when we have, as we have in our culture, a disintegration of a marriage culture where fewer fewer people are getting married. They're getting married later. So it's just, it's like people are opting out of the sexual revolution. And of course, the other factor in all of this is pornography.
Right.
Relationships are hard. Like, that's just simply the case. And so a lot of people are just running away from them. And so it's surprising on the one hand, but on the other hand, it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about the sexual revolution, that it can't, the sexual revolution says that sex is not meaningful and it's not about love. And so, at some point that makes it just not very interesting to people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when, as you said, there's this pornography that's so widely available, and the thing that makes culture go in many ways is the male pursuit of the female, and men just stop pursuing. And I don't know if where women are, but I do think that that's a real problem among young men, that they don't pursue women.
Yeah, and that's been, sociologists have studied that phenomenon too. And so that's also something that's kind of been known and documented. And, I should add, given how widespread pornography is, that there are Catholic resources out there to help people who are struggling with pornography addiction. And the websites aren't coming to mind offhand, but there really are good resources out there. And so, yeah.
Chastity.com, I think, is one. I think that's a friend of ours. I think, is that Everett's site? Yeah, chastity.com. It's more or less a clearinghouse for great stuff. So, and it's something that one thing I do think that this is something that it probably takes a long time for the Catholic Church to gear up, but there are more and more ministries in this regard it's hard because the shame that people experience around it is one of the things that the shame and isolation is one of the consequences of the thing itself. And then so it becomes a kind of cycle of decline that you just have to break. And so chastity.com is what I would suggest. What is a Human is a recent article that our guest, Dr. Angela Franks, published in the Catholic World Report. You can find that and much of her other writing at angelafranks.com. So now that we have come around to marriage, I would like to ask you about marriage and the misconception of the human body, because the idea that marriage is a permanent union between a man and a woman, I don't even know how small the minority of people that accept that anymore is. Is this diminishment about the idea of marriage? And I don't think it's bigoted to use the word diminishment. A lifelong union of a man and a woman is such a great glory of creation and of grace that any other idea of marriage is a diminishment, I think. Is this related then, this diminishment in the idea of marriage, also related to this diminishment of the idea of the human body, of what the human body is?
Yeah, the two really stand and fall together. If you don't understand that the body is this expression of a person, then the union of a man and woman in marriage suddenly becomes a little bit arbitrary, right? Because the part of why fidelity and commitment and an orientation to children is so central to marriage is because in marriage you have the coming together of two different kinds of people, of a male and a female, who are human beings who have this immense interior richness that they can express by means of their body, and not only sexually, but, talking and all the little gestures that we do, right? Like, our body is expressing us all the time, not only just in sexual situations. And so the mystery of that relationship that is also intrinsically fruitful, that it's oriented toward not only a fruitful love and a fruitful relationship between the man and the woman, but toward children. That's a much richer, academics like to say, thicker idea of marriage than the really kind of paper thin idea that we have in our culture, where it's what I call the cotton candy definition of marriage, and you see it in all sorts of different court decisions on same-sex marriage. They always use this cotton candy definition of marriage. I say that because it's like sweet it sounds really sweet, but it's like really airy and it's insubstantial. And that definition is almost always that marriage is between two people who love and are committed to each other.
Yeah.
And so, like, that sounds really sweet. Like, what are we against love, and commitment? Like, how can you be anti-love? But I'd like to point out, hopefully you have loving and committed relationships to all sorts of people. Like, it's not a definition that actually defines anything specific. It actually is a very vague definition. I like to think I have loving, committed relationships with my friends.
Right.
But they're not marriages, right? And so, like, all of those definitions leave out, kind of in this almost sort of Victorian, prudish sort of way, leave out the important thing, namely that marriage is about sex, like that it's
and sex makes babies.
A relationship that can lead to babies.
Yeah. Dr. Angela Franks has been our guest. I hope you will visit her at angelafranks.com. You can find her article, What is a Human, in the Catholic World Report. Dr. Franks, as always, a great pleasure to talk with you for an hour. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks for having me.
Tomorrow, 2 hours of open forum. Is that right, Darren? 2 hours of open forum? Call up, ask anything you want. Whether you're Catholic or not, everybody's welcome. Any question about the Catholic faith, welcome. We'll do that, God willing, tomorrow right here on Catholic Answers Live.